Hello and welcome everyone to the Emancipated Citizen podcast. I am your host Zach, and here's your other host Ben. Today we're going to be talking about the Shia community in Saudi Arabia, their long struggle for religious freedom and civil rights, and we're going to be actually talking to somebody from that community to share a little bit about his experience, and we're gonna have a friendly talk about comparing and contrasting our experiences. Me growing up in like a very religious Sunni background. And I guess being kind of on the other side of this issue in the past, and yeah, so I thought I'd give the audience just a brief background on the situation. So if you don't know anything about the history of the country, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia was founded on a militant religious movement seeking to purge the Arabian Peninsula from anything that they considered to be less than true Islam. And that, of course, included Shias and their religion, their practices, their mosques, their schools were very heavily targeted during the Wahabi conquests between 1800 and 1916, when the Ihsa region was finally taken over by the Sauds, and yeah, a lot of their religious practices were outlaws. Their call to prayer and their schools and institutions and so forth. Since then, there has been a lot of resistance. There's been a lot of unrest in the region, and understandably so, right? At least in recent years, it has been considered extremely dangerous for anyone to go out and demonstrate in Saudi Arabia, especially in the circles where I live, like in the central region of Saudi Arabia, where the Sunni majority live, and the standard of living isn't that bad. But in the eastern region, there has been constant unrest pretty much since the founding of the kingdom. It's taken kind of a peak, around the Arab Spring, just to talk about recent history. And the government has gone down very heavily on any kind of dissent and demonstration. Demonstrators were just shot on the street. People were arrested and sentenced to death for sending WhatsApp messages about demonstrations, about actions that are taking place. I'm talking specifically about the case of this young man, Abdul Karim Al-Hawaj, who was actually only 17 years old when he sent that WhatsApp message talking about a demonstration happening in his home city. He was beheaded in 2019, along with I believe 36 other people, mostly also from the Shia community. So yeah, not to harp on this too long, I thought our viewers would rather hear about the lived experience of Shias in the kingdom from our guest today. He's living in exile from the Shia-dominated eastern province. So, Mehdi, would you like to introduce yourself? Perhaps tell us a bit about how this issue may have affected your life. What was it like growing up? And
well, first of all, I'd like to say thanks for having me as a guest on the podcast. And my name is Mehdi. I have lived my whole life in Saudi Arabia, in the eastern province, exactly in Qatif. And I was raised there until I had to leave Saudi Arabia because of the issues and the suppression that happens against Shias in the eastern province or in Saudi Arabia generally. I cannot really start with how much issues there is against Shias in Saudi Arabia, but I would mention a point or two once I'm asked.
Yeah. So also, like I think one thing worth mentioning is that you have been through quite a lot. And as far as religious oppression goes in Saudi Arabia, you're not only part of one religious community. Like you're also an atheist, correct? And like you've been like as I understand it, you've been targeted like on both fronts. So we can kind of start kind of from the beginning. Talk about schools, how the education system works in like yeah how they try to get to the children from a very early age. How is your like your experience going to like state-run schools that are very openly hostile to the community you come from?
Well, there are a lot of difficulties, I would say. If it was just about school, it would have been kind of easier to deal with the whole situation or with the whole hostility against Shias in Saudi Arabia. But since it's everywhere, it's not just in school, it's even outside of the school. So, for example, starting from fourth grade, elementary school, we are forced to study religion in order to pass the grade, and we have to take tests in order to pass. And the issue is, especially in Qatif, that is, you do not believe in any uh, of what is written on these books, except for Quran. At least for me at that time, um, I had to memorize all the rules of the Islamic religion from a Sunni or a Wahabi standpoint in order for me to pass. And it was actually very difficult since, you know, you learn something in school, and then when you go back home and start studying, for example, with my family, they would point out that everything in that book is different from what we believe in, and it's wrong. So I shouldn't memorize it to memorize it. I just memorize it for the test. So it was very difficult. Besides the hostility that we get from the teachers telling us that we're infidels, we're all going to hell, we should talk to our families so we could all follow the right way. So it was quite difficult to deal with them, especially at a young age.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine it being an extremely confusing experience, like being so young and like being raised in a certain way and having your teachers try to essentially convert you to a different religion, um, and tell you that you're going to hell otherwise, and all of that, and like this is something like I've heard about myself too. I've known a Sunni teacher, a religious teacher, back in my days in Saudi Arabia, who did briefly work in Qatif, and yeah, it seems to be kind of part of the job to try to convert uh, those children out of their traditional religion. How did you go about it? Was there a conflict in your head? Was there like did you kind of think about, hey, maybe we are going to hell, maybe we should convert? maybe I should like do this or that, or did you always just have a completely antagonistic, or justifiably so, an antagonistic view of the establishment?
Well, here's the thing. I would say in Qatif especially, and like Shia communities generally, and in Qatif especially, there is a very strong foundation, I would say. So families usually try to establish these strong foundations that everyone is wrong, but not in a hostile way. Like you shouldn't be affected by any like outsider, except like you should at all. Like you cannot be affected at all since you were actually built from the ground with kind of strong foundation that um any attack or any belief that comes from the outside is debatable, but you cannot take it like take the point for like as the truth. So when we go to school, we have this mindset that this like what we're gonna learn, no matter what it is wrong, and every like entrance that they could enter from have been already mentioned by either families or religious gatherings that already gave us the answer. So even if we hear a new answer, we go back to the original one that we already heard. So I would say that it wasn't very difficult. Like in our heads, it wasn't something that we were kind of debating about. It was just the hostility and how much like strong of an attack it was that we were kind of annoyed and hurt by it at the time. So that's the feeling that we had, I guess. Like at least from my point of view, or my like from where I stood in this whole thing.
Yeah, and then just to kind of stress this point of hostility, it's not a simple like case of people being taught something different from what they're being taught at home, right? It's not about like, oh, you believe that, but you know the Christians believe in Jesus, and Jews believe in this or that, and Sunnis believe. No, it's no, what you were taught was wrong. You're going to hell for it. Your whole family is going to hell for it. You're not real Muslims because of it. Your worth as a human being is less because of it. Um, like this kind of rhetoric is what's hammered in. So it's not about teaching a different perspective. It's about you could say it's about humiliation in a way, right?
You could say so.
Yeah, because like living, like being on the other side of this, and especially like hearing this kind of rhetoric in school. I actually had this teacher. I forgot where he was from. He wasn't even Saudi. I think he was Jordanian or something. And he was like a homeroom teacher. Like our first period was always like kind of a teacher comes, we sit down, and like there's no real subject. We're just kind of, I guess, continuing to wake up, you know, all of that. And so the teacher that comes always like kind of talks about whatever he wants to talk about. And this one teacher would always talk about Shias and how they're evil, and how they want to kill us all, and how how they think they're going to be rewarded in heaven for each Sunni that they kill. And like controlling the banking and things like that. A lot of parallels with other far right conspiracy based ideologies. And you see this in the Armenian genocide, Hitler's Germany, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, well, funny enough, it's the exact same point of view that Shias have, especially in Qatif, that all Sunnis or all Wahhabis in Saudi Arabia will wants to kill us, and they get a special place in heaven for killing us. So it's kind of ironic how
it's
this whole
amazing
thing
how it's exactly the same, yeah.
yeah.
Are we
Uh,
sure one of them isn't correct though? Because it sounds like
well, one of them is more correct than the other. I have to I like to believe in the good in people, and a lot of people born in Sunni backgrounds and consider themselves Sunni, Salafi, Wahhabi. Yeah, they don't want to kill anyone. They're nice people, all of that. But yes, the Wahhabism as such is an ideology of purity, of cleansing the area of whatever they disagree with, and spreading this idea that they have of Tawheed, this very strict monotheism that essentially excludes any differing opinions. So yeah, this is what the Wahhabi movement is built on, and I know there are streams within Shia Islams that are also very violent, also very militant, but you can't generalize that to Shias in the same way, or I should say, you can't generalize that to Shia ideology in the same way that you can generalize it to Wahhabi ideology, because that's what Wahhabism was founded on. Without this exclusionary thoughts, it wouldn't have been distinguished as a religious and political movement. So I think you're right in a way, Ben. Then one of them is more correct than the other. Yeah. Okay, so as you grew up there and got to experience people's attitudes towards the government, towards their struggles, this bitterness, I can imagine this tension, right? And at the same time, this sense of danger, right? Which is actually ubiquitous everywhere in Saudi Arabia, where a lot of people in private will tell you that hey, I'm dissatisfied with this or that, but I'm only telling you this because I trust you, and I know you're not a government agent, and if this comes out, I'm gonna be in deep shit, right? So that's generally the attitude that people have about having any sort of political opinion, pretty much. But what's unique about Qatif or the Ihsa region in general is those problems are much bigger, and
much deeper, I would say.
Yeah, no, they're much deeper, and in a way, the danger's even greater, right? So how are people's attitudes about it, and are people willing to do something to kind of bring about a change, or do you come across a lot of people who are how does that play out in that particular community?
Well,
have they been beaten into silence pretty much by now, or would you say that their fighting spirit is still very much alive?
Well, the fighting spirit is still there. I could guarantee that if something happens in Saudi Arabia that could spark something, the first people that are gonna raise and protest and start to talk about the issues in Saudi Arabia are the people in Qatif, especially the Shia community. It's just the fact that there is not enough spark that is happening right now, at least against only Shias, only people that live in the Qatif or Ihsa region, that is giving them the opener of like protesting or speaking up. At least that is not happening. But the spirit is still there. Like people are still
Could you
trying
elaborate
to,
on what you mean by an opener, like a specific event, an attack, or something like that?
like for example, you could see in the Arab Spring, people started to protest and speak up after other countries have started, like in Algeria or in Egypt, in Syria. Like they started to protest peacefully, like with no weapons and nothing. And after the hostility that happened in like against the people in Al-Ahsa and Al-Qatif, they calmed down a little bit. I would say like the force was just too huge for them to take until Sheikh Nimr al-Nimr, which was basically the spiritual leader of the movement in Qatif and Ahsa. He was arrested and then executed in 2016, which sparked another spark for people. Like it gave people a reason. Like obviously, it wasn't the only reason why people started to speak up, and they went out in a very hostile and very um, aggressive movement, I would say. It was just the fact that that was an opener. You should not touch someone that is speaking up peacefully, speaking up without a weapon. He's just speaking up like aggressively, but in a peaceful way. Like if you gave him what he wanted, and all he wanted was his rights to practice his religion, his rights for a better life for people in Qatif, he wouldn't have asked for more. Believe it or not, like I know a lot of people in Saudi Arabia does not believe this, but like most of them think, quote unquote, people in Qatif want to conquer Saudi Arabia and take it for themselves. Believe it or not, we do not care who rules Saudi Arabia. We just want our rights. We just want to live peacefully and practice our religion, at least from Qatif or Shia's point of view in Saudi Arabia. That's all what they want.
And to talk about Sheikh Nimr, he was a civil rights, civil resistance, civil disobedience leader, and I'd like to kind of try to paraphrase some of his words from a very iconic speech that he gave shortly before he was arrested. He said, "I warn you against using weapons. Our weapons are our voice. We go out with our naked chests and use our martyrdom as a tool in that way." And starts with this chant, "I am the next martyr. Ana shahidu tali." It's like, we're going out peacefully without weapons. We're demanding our rights, and we're essentially like presenting ourselves in front of the armed forces to willingly just be executed like that, to make this powerful statement. So this is the kind of man that he was. This is like that. This was what he preached, and yeah, obviously I don't agree with everything he said, right? He was a religious leader after all. He was very conservative, and but you know, one really has to respect this fighting spirit, this willingness to sacrifice so much for one's community, for their rights and for their freedoms. And turned out that he was actually like the next martyr for the cause. he was arrested and shortly thereafter executed in 2016. And yeah, that just kind of shows you, you know, it's not about people wanting to invade or take over anything, or just normal people want their civil rights.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if that's not getting the much deserved response, then what is there left really, except to try to change things by force in a way, or
waiting for the oil money to run out so that the Saudis will have more important things to worry about.
yeah. And the really insane thing is about this whole situation is you see a lot of people, even like people who are, I guess, relatively sympathetic to the cause, not by normal human standards, by the standards of Saudi Arabia, saying things like, "Hey, so why don't they, for example?" Like I'm thinking, for example, about this specific incident where an ISIS operative bombed a Shia mosque in Qatif, I believe, and yeah, there were a lot of demonstrations about this, like a vigil for the people lost in this tragic incident. There were some people carrying Iranian flags. There were some people like carrying other flags. And one thing I've seen in the media, hey, why don't they show their loyalty to the Saudi regime, put up a Saudi flag and like try to win their rights through loyalty in a way? And I'm just completely baffled by this kind of argumentation, because hey, what did the Saudi state ever do to win your loyalty, right?
True. That is completely true.
They were founded on wanting to exterminate you, essentially. So this notion that, hey, if we're loyal and we like support the Saudi regime and try to get into the inner circles and all of that, then things will change. It's been tried, right? It's been tried from like a lot of different activists from the community being like elected in advisory councils for the king, King Abdullah specifically, having those private discussions with a lot of like religious leaders in the kingdom, like Salman and Oda and so on. But nothing came out of it. It's like, and why would anything come out of it if there isn't enough force to force the Saudi government's hand, right? Could you elaborate a bit more about like what your experiences were around this time, especially, the Arab Spring, 2011, 2012, all the unrest that was happening? Have you ever been like part of any protests or movements, or had any family or loved ones that had those conflicts with law enforcement? Yeah, could you talk about that a little bit?
Well, here's the thing. I did not have any family member that was a part of the Arab Spring in 2011. I tried to be a part of it. I'll be completely honest. I tried to be a part of it, but it was too dangerous to even participate, even from afar or on the internet. Like, it's very difficult since you will be tracked down and you will go to prison because of it. I had two friends in school when we were in, I would say, 11th grade. We were in the 11th grade, and two of our friends were arrested while they were going to the gym. So they went to the gym, and on their way back, they got arrested because of not activities. They did not go into protests at all. It just was the fact that they browsed some pages on Facebook about the protests for a few days, and they were arrested, and they were imprisoned for for more than a year just for that fact. They had to take their LSATs in prison, so they won't waste time when they come out. That's how bad it was.
So the government's going so far as to track people's online activity, to use spyware and see which pages people are visiting on social media and punish them for that.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, and to give some more background on this whole issue, so there was recently a report from Citizen Lab that this Saudi women's rights activist was being tracked through her online activity through Israeli spyware from the NSO group. So basically, everything that she does on her phone, everything she looks at on social media is being tracked. And we just really have no idea how far this use of spyware goes within the country. It could be
even further.
Like anyone could be watched at any moment. And yeah, I mean, there's no accountability. Nobody's looking where those resources are going and how they're being used. And the Saudi government has put a lot of effort into policing social media like that. Another example is the spy that they sent to the Twitter company in California around 2018. His job was essentially to get into the Twitter servers and identify anonymous activists based in Saudi Arabia, people posting from fake accounts or under fake names, and find out which phone number they use to register with Twitter, so that they can track them back and imprison them. And an example of one person that was a victim of this was Abdurrahman Sadhan, who was working with the Saudi Red Crescent. He was a first aid worker. He talked about labor conditions in Saudi Arabia under a fake name, and he was made to disappear for a number of years, and then sentenced to some 20 years in prison just last year. So yeah, the Saudi government really does pour in a lot of resources to police social media, and I hope our listeners can only imagine what it's like to live in such a place.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, it is something that a lot of people go through, so I cannot emphasize about it enough.
So other than that, have you personally had any run-ins with the law? Or like
I
have you been
did
targeted in
actually.
any way?
I did. I was actually I wasn't targeted like by name, but I was arrested and I was detained or imprisoned and tortured before I leave Saudi Arabia in 2019.
What was the reason for that?
Well, there was no apparent reason, since I wasn't really in the midst of any activity. I was just parked on the beach, just um, early in the morning, like at two in the morning. I was just sitting in front of the beach since I had nothing to do and it was the weekend and my family was away. They were traveling. So I thought I shouldn't stay at home like alone. So I just went to the beach there and suddenly a patrol car came to my car or like behind my car. So I went there to check if something is going on, and they told me, "Why are you here?" I told them that like the same thing that I just told you, that my family's away, I have nothing to do, and I don't have any work. I can't sleep, so I just came here. And they asked me for my ID and my car registration. I gave it to them, and then things started to go down. Like, um, they first thought it wasn't the same person. So on the spot, I was accused of identity theft, and they arrested me for that. And they wouldn't let me go unless they confirmed my identity. So
Identity theft, like
yeah,
they thought like the person on the ID didn't look like you or what?
yeah, they thought
Okay.
that I was a different person. Well, here's the thing: the system in Saudi Arabia, you make an ID when you're 15 years old and you use it for 10 years. You will obviously change. Not that huge or big of a change, but you will change in 10 years. So, like, you grow a beard, you might lose some weight, you might gain some weight. Like, it's something that will happen to everyone. And when you take the picture, you take it with the official clothes, like the thobe. So you take it with that, wearing that. But when they arrested me, I was wearing casual clothes. So it doesn't make sense for them to just suspect that I stole someone's ID. And it's not grounds for just arresting anyone. Unless if you're certain, like 90 to 100% that I stole this ID, you cannot just arrest me there without a warrant.
And in like in any case, if they were to take you to the station or something, like this kind of thing should be like they should be able to clear it up fairly quickly, right?
On the
I don't.
spot.
Yeah,
They
I don't
should
know.
be
Like,
able to clear it on the spot. Like at least try to check. You have a walkie-talkie. Talk to the center or like to whoever on the other end. Give them my ID number. Ask them about any information that is on my name, and I could answer it.
yeah,
And but they wouldn't do that. They said
and so
that we need to take you to the station to confirm
yeah,
everything.
and Saudi IDs, by the way, also have biometric information on them.
They
So
do.
in the worst case scenario, they can like just take your fingerprints or something, and it should be cleared up, right?
Hmm.
But that's not what they did, is it? Like, what happened when you got to the station?
Well, when I got to the station, I was put in an empty room where they started asking me questions about myself, and I would answer them, and then they would say, "Who told you that information?" And I was so confused. Like, I told them, "You're asking me about myself. Who would tell me about these information?" I am telling you about it.
It's like,
It is.
how old are you? I'm 25. Who told you you're 25?
Yeah,
That kind
it's
of thing.
like it's so stupid. Like, if they're telling me, "Tell us your ID number," I would tell them, and they would tell me, "How did you memorize it?" Like, it is my ID. I've been using it for 10 years. Of course I memorized it.
And how long
But
did they hold you for?
they held me for questioning about my identity for 3 days. But it wasn't that only. Like, I wasn't just there for 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
I
And
mean,
do you think it was just about your identity? Do you think
I
that?
I think at the beginning it was just about my identity, since there was no physical harm, or there was no torture, no raising their voices. It just was an interrogating method, the good cop, bad cop method, and some other methods that they used to extract some information about me lying about this ID. Those methods have been used on me, but it wasn't really serious. Like, I I was only asked about my identity in a very rough way at the last day, which made me really snap at them and tell them, like, "You make such a big deal of our biometrics when we make this ID card, so why don't you just take my biometrics and make sure that it is me?"
And what did they say?
They did not say anything, because I guarantee they thought they were the stupidest people on earth for not doing that from moment one.
Okay, and did they take your biometrics?
They did take my biometrics. They confirmed that it was me. And after that, after they confirmed that it was me, I told them, "So I'm free to go?" They said, "No, you're from Qatif. We need to ask you a couple of questions." And then it went even further downhill.
So essentially, they just told you, like, right to your face,
Mm-hmm.
you're being held not because of anything you did, but because
Mm-hmm.
of where you're from.
Yes, I have been told that.
Like, they didn't even try to hide it or give
They
some
they did
excuse.
not,
They
like,
just, yeah,
even
we're
if I
holding you
raise
because
a
of where you're
petition.
from.
Yeah, even if I raise a petition to, like, to the king himself, and tell him that I was arrested for this and that, they would not care. Like, they told me that I was arrested just for the fact that I'm from Qatif, and I'm still not talking about what happened later. Like, I'm just saying that, and they're telling me, "We're not holding you because of an issue that you did. We're holding you because you're from Qatif, and we need some information."
Information on what?
Well, that's the point. I told them, "What kind of information? If I can provide it, I would tell you." And to be completely honest, at the time, I was away from Saudi Arabia for a long time. Like, um, I had a scholarship, so I was away from Saudi Arabia. I was not used to the hostility, or I kind of forgot about it. So I thought they were going to ask me about some mild things. Even, like, at some point, I even thought, like, because they told me we need some information and then left for a few minutes. So at that time, I was thinking, are they going to ask me about some good restaurants in Qatif? Are they new here? Like, I was really thinking like that.
Uh,
At some point, I was genuinely thinking about that. But then I thought to myself, why would they do that in a holding, like in a waiting room or in a holding cell. Like they wouldn't ask me about that. They would take me to the reception, for example, and then ask me there before like seeing me off. But it wasn't the case.
So what did they ask you about?
Well, at the beginning, they let me sit in a room, and they let me sit in the center of the room on a wooden chair, and they asked me some questions about about some people. Um, and I was so confused because why would you ask me about someone from Qatif, like from a specific area where I'm not from? And I told him I do not know this person, and they would say, no, he's around your age. You must know him. He's one of the shabab, like he's one of the guys. He's one of the homies. You should know him. And I told him I don't. And then he would go out and another cop would come in and he would say, you would make it a lot easier for yourself if you tell him the information immediately. That was when it was only one-to-one conversation.
And it's not like Qatif is a small village where everybody knows
Yeah.
each other. Right? It's like a city of like some 500,000 people.
Well, originally, Qatif was like an independent, I would say, not state, but independent like county away from Dammam, but then they included it with it. But it was a very huge, like it's a very, very big county. Like it's even bigger than Dammam itself.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Go on.
And like how am I supposed to know one person that is around my age out of 200,000 and that live in this city? It's so ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
So yeah, they kept going like back and forth about this until the moment that they like like they just snapped on me. They started screaming. They started giving me like slaps on the face, and I was so like I was scared, confused, and kind of in denial. Like this is a dream. Like I was thinking this is a dream. This can't be happening to me. I don't have any records. Dude, I even do not have a speeding ticket. So why am I detained here? Like I've never had a speeding ticket even, which is the smallest thing. Why am I being detained and interrogated and tortured, I would say, because of people that I don't know? At some point I was even like crying and telling him, why are you telling me this? Like, why are you asking me this? I wasn't even in Saudi Arabia this whole period. Like for at least 5 years I wasn't in Saudi Arabia. So why are you asking me about this? I don't have any interaction with people here except for two people, and I told them this friend and this friend, they were with me in high school and they are the only people that I talk to. I do not know anyone. They said, if you don't know anyone and you only know those two people, why didn't you go to them? Why did you come to like the beach in Qatif? That means you are meeting someone. It was like they are trying to extract tomato juice from a banana.
Yeah.
That's how absurd it was. Like they and it kept going on for 30 days, more or less. For 30 days it kept going on, like the interrogation, the hostility, the beating. They even like put off some cigarettes on my skin, on my hand, on my back, and even on my leg. They tried to sexually assault me and harass me. They had like they've done a lot of things. They even broke a chair on my back, which is causing me problem until this day. Like a lot of problems. When I walk, when I sit in a certain way, I still feel the pain that I had when they did that to me.
No. So you said like first those two of your friends get arrested for no apparent reason. You get arrested like that. People are essentially just taken at random, interrogated, tortured, to like kind of squeeze out any kind of information about sedition or any kind of uprising that's happening from the region. And
that is true.
And that's what you get when you have a government with absolutely no accountability and complete free reign to do whatever it wants to preserve its power, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's correct.
So after like all of this, they torture you. They try to get some information about anything going on in the city. They don't get anything, and after like 30 days, they just let you go.
No, I actually asked them for a phone call.
Yeah.
It took a while. I asked them to like have a phone call. They refused the first time. And then after a few days, like after 3 days, I think they told me that we can give you, I think like, I feel like one of them have felt bad about me. So he told me like, I'm going to give you only 1 minute. Like you only have 1 minute to talk with someone. I told him, okay. And he gave me my phone. I turned it on. I instantly called one of my colleagues at work, which I knew had some powerful people in the police. And I told him, I'm being detained here. For no apparent reason. Get me out. I don't care how much it costs. Get me out. And then the policeman took my phone away and hung up and like took the phone away and returned me to the interrogation room.
Was your friend able to provide any help?
Yes, actually he was the one that got me out. He talked to someone and we had to bribe the officer for a very big amount, I would say, so I could go out.
And so just like to get the story kind of in perspective, you were detained first, like for a couple of days. You were questioned about your ID, and when were you able to make that phone call?
I was able to make that phone call. No, after almost a month in detention.
Yeah, and I am curious, like, what do you think would have happened if your friend wasn't there for you?
I think it's one of two things. It's either I'm gonna be like, well, here's the thing. I wasn't the one that they needed. They needed information from me. So I wouldn't see a possibility where they would get a confession under torture, like from me, just in order to detain me. All I was afraid about, especially at that time, is that they're gonna ask about some other things, and it would lead to me being an atheist at the time. Which is gonna cause problem. But if they did not get there, I think I would have been released maybe after 2 or 3 months. which was around the time that those people got arrested that they needed, and some of them got executed, which was in 2019. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that is all incredibly heavy, and it's hard to have hope in this kind of like with this kind of difficulty. It's just don't know how you can go forward if social media is being watched, people's text messages are being watched. You go and demonstrate, like even like say with minimal clothing, and just to kind of show you're not armed, you're not a threat, you're just making very basic demands for your rights, and all of that can very easily lead to your death. So my question here is there anything at all that someone from that community can do to kind of help or do their part in fighting for their rights? Is there any safe way to do that at all? And if you could talk to people over there right now, people currently struggling with this kind of thing, is there any idea that you might have anything that might be able to be done, or would you go like the route of saying, just take care of yourself, be safe, and don't speak a word about this, about anything to anyone, just cover your own neck? What would you say to someone in that situation right now if you had the chance?
Well, like coming from the same background as me, I wouldn't say you shouldn't say anything, because obviously if you don't say anything, you're doing the exact thing that the government wants you to do. All I could say is, which is actually the thing that I've been doing, and it's my way of life right now, which is patience. Just be patient, and a way will clear itself for you. Whether it's for life or for your rights in Saudi Arabia, a way will clear itself for you. It might be difficult right now, but there will be a time where there will be a chance for us to rise again and change how things are going in Saudi Arabia. That's all I could tell them.
Yeah, and like even in recent years, I think that was what, last year or like the year before that, the Saudi armed forces did march into Qatif and really did wholesale like destroyed a significant part of the city, correct?
Mm-hmm. They did.
Yeah. And the most like tragic thing about this is like that the countries that or the governments, the modern governments that you could say pioneered those liberal ideas of the free press, freedom of religion, freedom of assembly, and have really pushed on an international level to like enshrine those things in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and have different countries sign onto it. Countries like the United States and France are still to this day directly supplying arms to the Saudi state, the very same weapons that are being used to crush the people of Qatif.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about that? Is there anything you'd like to say about that? Because
I feel
like I'm not from the community, and but I do feel like an incredible amount of rage and disappointment at that fact. I'd like to hear if you have anything to say on the matter, or any words to the people in charge in those free countries.
Well, it is beyond me, to be honest. Like the whole political issues or the political like relationship between Saudi Arabia and the US, it's all beyond me. It's something way bigger than I could I would say and get involved in. Like I'm a very calm person, so I would like my life to be calm, to be peaceful. I wouldn't like to get into politics that much, but I would like it if the community starts to look into human rights and how Saudi people are treated, regardless of their religion or their uh like if they're Shias or Sunnis or whatever. I would like it if they just look at us as humans and give us our human rights in general. And one of the things that they could do when they start looking at us that way is stop supporting the Saudi regime or the Saud family, which is I would love for it to happen so soon, but it seems like as long as the Saudi money is still there, there will be a lot of turning a blind eye on what Saudi Arabia does.
No, I mean, at the very least, stop providing arms to them, and maybe have some very strict conditions, at least on providing those arms. Conditions about how they are to treat their people, and yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not as though anyone in the U.S. actually likes the Sauds. I mean, Obama's foreign policy team jokes about people they don't like, by which I mean Jared Kushner, being treated like half-witted Saudi princes. It's just we need that oil to keep flowing, even though it's not flowing to us.
Mm-hmm.
Also on.
Yeah, it is very very unfortunate political and economic situation. It's kind of similar actually to the relationship between Germany and Russia right now, because before the invasion of Ukraine, and even now to a degree, Germany has been very dependent on Russian gas, and they have reduced a lot of gas imports from Russia, but Germany is still depending to some degree on importing Russian gas, even while supporting the resistance in Ukraine, and kind of playing both sides in that way. That is absolutely tragic. And yeah, I would say that no amount of energy or economic growth is worth this kind of human cost. And
realistically, if some of that oil doesn't start staying underground indefinitely, we're all going to be in trouble as it is. And somehow we became dependent on it.
Yeah. Yes, I mean that's a completely different topic, but
yes.
But I mean, we really need to invest more in renewable energy and like a self-reliant energy sectors, so that we don't have to rely on despots to bring us our electricity and to run our cars and so on. Because I don't think any decent and informed human being would think this is a justified price to pay, right? To have those entire communities crushed, humiliated, exterminated, so that they can keep running their cars and keep the heat on in the winter. It's just not worth it. And in my personal opinion, I think even like dealing with a severe energy shortage, and trying to build those things from the ground up would be par for the course here. I mean, like we really, like we started off wrong with getting dependent on those despots, and this is a pattern that I don't think should be changed gradually or phased out. And I think this is a mistake that needs to be corrected right away. And like the energy concerns are going to have to take a back seat there. So this was a difficult but very important topic to engage with. Unfortunately, I don't think many of our episodes are going to be very happy in their theme. We want to inform people about very important civil rights issues happening around the world, and try to encourage engagement with this kind of thing, because really not enough people pay attention to it. There's not enough solidarity, and I do truly think that solidarity is the key to a lot of those situations. People need to be paying more attention, be informed, and take action. So that being said, thanks everyone for sticking with us. Ben, Mandy, do you have any final words? Is there anything you'd like to add to this episode before we wrap it up?
No, you pretty much mentioned everything. I would say everything that is important. But the one thing I want to say is thanks for having me. It was very nice to talk about what I have gone through. I have talked about it before, but it wasn't in much detail. So thank you for giving me the chance to.
Yeah, we truly appreciate your being here, and I know it can't be easy to relive those difficult experiences. So just the fact that you were willing to come here and share this with us, it's very brave of you, I'll have to say.
Thank you.
So yeah, Ben, do you have any comment or last words?
Yeah, just that this is awful, and I am really sick of the taxes I pay going to help the Saudis stay in power. And I guess the only other thing I would say is this is covering what the government is doing. Maybe we could do a future episode about what things are like socially. I've heard so much about that as well. It's also probably worth covering, but it's separate from the government paranoia.
Yeah, perhaps we can do that. And I mean, it is tied in together, and when it comes to conspiracy theories and paranoia and xenophobia, I mean, the government really does fuel that. But you're right. There are a lot of like social angles that we can delve deeper into this from.
Yeah, and I mean that's actually a more fun topic too.
Yeah.
It's
It's a lot more lighthearted to just make fun of people's bizarre beliefs. That's a topic for another day. For now, thank you everyone for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode. Bye.
Bye.